Hello, everyone. Welcome to CEDIA Expo Virtual. Thank you for joining us once again to continue our conversations around water in the smart home. Title of this discussion, this panel, is Healthy Water in the Smart Home. I'm your session moderator. My name is John Robinson. I am a partner at a company called Mazarine Ventures. We are venture capital in the water space, but we have a particularly strong focus on water in the smart home, whether it's multifamily, single family, or commercial. We've seen, as investors, we've seen locks, lights, and thermostats become smart. Why not water? And so it turns out there's a lot of opportunities for water within the smart home, whether it's hot water or filtration or sump pump, pool, backyard irrigation, water appliances, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that could become smart. So as investors, we're keenly focused on this space. We've discovered in our investigation of smart home that a common mistake that trade professionals and homeowners alike make is overlooking the impact of water quality on the overall health of the occupants of the home, whether it's a senior living or a school or your own home. And an added layer of knowledge with the newest connected purification products and quality monitoring products is front and center in this conversation. So today we're excited to discuss the future of water quality and tech integration in the home. So I'm joined with three other panelists. So I wanted to take a second to allow each of them to introduce themselves. Jeff, please tell us about yourself.
Awesome. My name is Jeff Jensen. I'm CEO and founder of a company called Keto AI. As presently, we're not a diet company, for how many of you think that we may be selling diets. We are a smart pool and service company. So we've used hardware and software and IoT and the greatest AI and analytics to try and solve making pool maintenance and water care simple for the homeowner. And we've been able to do that by working with the current service industry, who has been focused on water quality for over 30 years. And we've been able to bring new technology and new software in a very different way than I think people have ever looked at the pool and smart home market. Before that, I've been in software and startup development. It's my third startup company. Done water and oil and gas, and done some other ventures surrounding kind of smart water in the home. And ultimately, outside of that, also I'm a big swimmer, although the pandemic's kind of brought down, but I'm an avid triathlete. So if we've got any other swim bike runners on the call, welcome.
And Jeff, where are you based?
Yeah, we're based out of Houston, Texas. So.
Okay, great. And how long has the company Keto AI been around?
Yeah, great. We were founded early 2018, so we've been around for a couple of years and still going strong through the pandemic. So
cool. Great, thanks to have you on the call.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cameron, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Hi, I'm Dr. Cameron Lippert, the co-founder and CEO of PowerTech Water, where we are developing a platform technology based around carbon materials and electrochemistry to deliver targeted solutions for a variety of water purification. Our core product, Electromet, is focused on industrial wastewater for discharge compliance, but now we're looking to launch a new division to take this core platform technology and be able to deliver a targeted water purification connected device for point of entry and point of use into the smart home, looking to create that healthy water for the healthy consumption. So I'm a classically trained chemist, PhD chemistry, but got the whole entrepreneurship bug in grad school when I started my first company, and it all kind of snowballed from there, and here I am. Like Jeff, I'm also an avid swimmer. I spent my entire life swimming. I actually went to the Junior Olympics when I was in high school. So I missed that. But yeah, so core passion is really getting the science into the technology we use and taking that and making it applicable to the everyday life.
And where are you based, Cameron?
We are based in Lexington, Kentucky.
Oh, cool. But are you from Lexington originally?
I was raised in Florida and slowly made my way to Kentucky through academia.
Okay, good. Well, it's good to have you on the call, Cameron. Last but not least, Johnny, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, John. Hello, everybody else. My name is Johnny Pujol. I am the CEO of SimpleLab. We've been in business for 3 years with the TapScore water testing product, and a real keen focus on people's water quality concerns at home. So we spend a lot of our time addressing smells, tastes, colors, health fears, plumbing risks, appliance problems that folks have when they're at home or they're at work and there's something wrong with the drinking water and they want to do some kind of testing. We offer a number of water testing services. The biggest one is probably TapScore, and people will order a variety of water tests from us. They'll get not only kind of like a very simple customer experience to choose an accredited laboratory and the appropriate water testing panel, but we will then give them a thorough report that translates those lab results into something more meaningful and actionable. We collect an enormous amount of data from public and private sources regarding water quality health, and we synthesize all that together in order to give every customer the access to a much richer data set to contextualize their own environmental health testing that they do with us. Just like when you go to the doctor, we think if you have some environmental concerns, you should have no trouble evaluating your environmental health at home and making sense of it. And so long and short of it is we're based in Berkeley, California. Been around for 3 years. You can see one of our water tests at mytapscore.com, and our company is SimpleLab, and I'm the CEO.
Great, thanks, Johnny. And so Jeff and Cameron are swimmers. What's your interaction with water?
I swim I surf. That's kind of like swimming, but it's it's a lot sloppier. I've tried the ocean swimming a couple times. It's lonely out there.
Yeah.
I as a kid, it was a little more fun doing it in the pool because in the summertime you race back and forth, and I loved that. That was awesome. But they stopped letting you do that if you're not good enough after a while.
Well, thanks guys. Jeff, Cameron, and Johnny, good to have you on the call. So for our audience out there, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a chat function and a Q&A function. Please make sure if you have any questions, put it in the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer those at the end of the session. Good. So let's jump right into this. Jeff, Cameron, and Johnny. I want to start with you, Johnny. Because you're in the testing business of water quality in people's homes. I can't think of anything more important than that, but people are not really aware of water quality in their homes. Why is that? Most people are just sort of oblivious to it. They just trust that the water's good. What is your understanding of why people or homeowners are not familiar with this?
I think there's the big picture question is that we do a really poor job of making sense of environmental data, as a society. There is not one place you can go to get a really clear sense of what your exposures are. We're a fast economy. We build new products and introduce new chemicals and new materials into our environment at a Herculean pace. We do a much slower job of monitoring and regulating and understanding the impacts of those chemicals. So water is part of a much bigger picture, in my opinion, of an overall lack of transparency on environmental exposure. It's a great metaphor for the overall problem because it's something that everybody has contact with, everybody has ingestion, and undergoes a very kind of intimate experience with drinking water, and yet you have no information, very little information from your public water utility or as a private well owner. And so I think the short answer is that any amount of water quality data that you're obtaining, you have to really obtain on your own. And you really can't depend upon someone else or a doctor to come in and give you these kind of answers. And it's not surprising why. Environmental health risks are more diffuse. They're lower probability. What we think is, sorry, my doorbell just started going off, if you can hear that sound. I think ultimately with environmental health and with water testing, you're looking at a situation in which more people are exposed to a less certain risk, right? It's the polar opposite of gun crime, where you have a very clear indication of what's wrong and a very clear indication of the impacts and the effects. So from my personal opinion, why do we not know a lot about our water quality? It's because it's so unlike gun crime that we have to do a lot of work to figure out what the risks are, how they impact us, when they impact us, you know, what are the chances of these things having an appreciable effect over time. So it's an uphill battle, and something that I think as a full society, we need to learn how to gather all the data on environmental health and make it personal. Like if you know, many industries, not just water and environment, have proven that if you make something personal, people start paying more attention. And doing that appropriately is a non-trivial exercise. It can be tricky.
So Johnny, your company's product is called TapScore. So how is that part of the smart home? I want to make my house smart. Are you in the middle of the journey, at the end of the journey? When do I call you?
So in our opinion, there are like a number of times when you'd want to check in on environmental health in your home. The most obvious moment is when you're buying a home. You know, you're about to live 2, 5, 10, 20, 50 years in this space. You're breathing the air, you're touching the dust, you're drinking the water, and so are your kids. And so before you move in, you've got a great moment to evaluate that impact. The UN, the CDC, many other world organizations suggest that somewhere between 65 and 85% of the chance you get sick is because of these diffuse environmental risks. And so before you move into a home, you have a chance to kind of evaluate that, what that's going to be for yourself for a while. And then over time, you should continue to kind of check in on it once in a while, trust your senses, but also occasionally test things that you can't smell, taste, or see. And over time, what that does is that paints a nice picture, not just for you, but for everyone in your block, with an anonymized attention to detail that enables us to kind of have a cleaner picture overall. But right now, presently, you know, very few people are doing this kind of testing in their homes.
Okay. Well, you're part of the solution, Johnny. So just a segue over to buying a house. Jeff, I know you recently bought a house in Houston.
Yeah.
And it had a pool in it, and you looked at the pool, and you talked to the pool tech, and you decided to start a whole business around it. Like, what is the problem with pools that people don't understand, and why do you exist? Why does Keto exist?
I think, you know, so the pool industry has been around a long time, actually. I mean, you can watch early videos, I mean, back to the 50s, but I mean, it really goes back even further than that to the Romans, and even probably further before that. And so I think what's so fascinating about a swimming pool, and especially after this season, I mean, pools had the biggest year, I think, historically, is that, you know, when you look at water and you see it's clear, you know, I always thought, at least, like, okay, it's safe, you know, bath water comes out clear. And what you end up kind of going through and experiencing, I think, as a pool owner is like either going to the store or having somebody service it. I mean, obviously they're putting in chemical, and it only takes, I think, one time for you to have dry, itchy skin or itchy eyes, or have your kid's hair turn green or something, right? To kind of come to a realization of like, oh, you know, we're using real chemicals that are killing real things in the pool. This is a matter of safety. It's a matter of health. And same thing, like, you know, Johnny mentioned, I mean, you know, people ingest the water, and it's been noted that you can, you know, it's like when a kid poops in the pool, everybody gets out. Well, why do you do that? Well, because there's a chance that you ingest something you don't want to. And so I was just fascinated that when I went to better understand what was intimately going on with my pool and my water, because I have kids, there was really nothing on the market I could get. And there was also kind of a lack of trust with somebody who was, let's say, taking care of your pool. I like what Johnny brought up and said, you know, it's personalized. Like, I think a lot of people like having the control, like knowing what's really going on. So I set out to basically make a difference and say, hey, how can we provide more meaningful, more personalized, customized data that gives pool owners, you know, the information and the intimate data they need to make good swimming decisions, to keep safe and be healthy in the pool. So that was what came across my mind. And that's really what kind of set me out on my journey. So,
and the product that you sell is hardware and software, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we started out with a hardware approach. I think most people would say, and like Johnny brought up, like that data wasn't readily available. Like I said, in the days of buying Nest thermostats and everything you brought up, John, at the beginning of the call, was like, hey, everything's been hooked up, it's all IoT, etc. And so we started out in creating a hardware product that would sense the water chemistry. You know, in Houston and the southern states, you do have a bad problem with evaporation. So we do things as well, like sense the water level, which is also important to protect your investment. You don't want your pump running dry, some of the things around a pool. And then we've kind of, as we've grown and we've learned more about our customer base and our users, we've continued to enhance the software experience. So what people experience in the palm of their hand, on a phone, and honestly, being able to interface with other people and expertise in the industry, such as service providers or people that provide chemicals.
So if I have a Keto skimmer in my pool, I can see it on my phone, and my pool service tech, he or she can also see it on their phone, correct?
Correct. And it's funny because I think a lot of people in the industry think that, well, if I just, it's kind of like when Ring, I guess, came, you know, when Ring came, and when these other doorbell products came, it's not necessarily that people wanted to get rid of the police, right? I think people wanted to see, you know, security and see people seeing packages. And so we've actually observed something I think really interesting in the pool industry, which is it's all about trust and transparency. And I think when you're doing personalized service, or when you're taking care of a pool even by yourself, yeah, having a device in which like you can both see the performance of your pool. And if you have a service technician, we're finding that, you know, people also like that validation, like, wow, I'm paying $200 a month for this. I mean, I can actually see the guy's doing his job. Because it's not like mowing a lawn, right? In the sense that if somebody mows your lawn in a bad way, you see it immediately. If somebody takes care of your pool in a bad way, it could be a week before it either goes green or you see something wrong. And so our hardware device and our software allows everybody involved with the pool, swimmers, the pool owner, service technicians, all to have complete visibility across what you want.
So it's kind of business model innovation, software innovation, and business model innovation all rolled up.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
So switching over to Cameron for a second. So Sage Water, your new offering that you're about to launch, how is this different than my Brita filter that I have in my sink or my refrigerator filter? We get water out of the fridge, and we've got a Brita filter pure. What's different about what you're doing than those existing players?
This is a great segue coming off what Jeff was just saying, is people like to know that their stuff is working. Because water, you can't tell. Water goes in, water comes out, it all looks the same. All the bad stuff in the water, we can't really see. So the big difference is, because our device is built from the ground up with that IoT aspect, we have all the capabilities to show that our system is working and removing what's not supposed to be there and living in what's supposed to be there. And we can show that to you. So we can give that peace of mind to the end user to know my water is actually good to drink. My purification device is actually working as intended. With the current stuff, said water goes in, how do you know it's working or not? The light goes off, you push the light, it goes green again, and you keep using it. You just never know if it's doing what it's supposed to do. So you could be drinking contaminated water, or it could be clean water. You just, that, again, lack of, you know, don't know what's going on. Right? That transparency is not there because we don't have the visual cues like we do, like I said, cutting your grass. So we have to have some other way to see what's going on in that water, so we have to see what's going on with the device itself. And the old technology, those old systems don't have that capabilities. It's all kind of retrofitted after the fact to trying to put a Band-Aid on it, whereas our offering is now built with that in mind from the ground up. The whole idea is it tells you, you can know, give that information to the end user of, yes, it's working as intended. Yes, this is safe and healthy.
And how are you able to do that? I mean, how are you able to do that condition assessment and get it to my phone? What's unique about your technology that's different than activated carbon?
Yes, the big difference is activated carbon is just like a filter, right? Water goes in, it kind of throws stuff and comes out. That's a very passive process. Ours uses small amounts of electricity, less than a AA battery, to essentially charge up our carbon materials, and now it's an active process. And much like your iPhone can tell you how much battery life you have, there's signals in there with the voltage and all the other power consumption tells us that it's working, and more importantly, how well it's working. Mm-hmm. So you can see that performance decline, much like your battery phone goes from 100% down to 20%. So once it gets down to 20%, say, hey, it's not going to perform as well. It's time to replace it.
Mm-hmm. So, what's your time schedule on bringing this to market?
We're looking to have the first sort of prototypes in the field in the next few months, and then Q2 of 2021 start to get actual devices in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That sounds like an impressive product. So circling back to you, Johnny. So My home, I don't know if I need a filter. I think the water's good, but should I buy Cameron's product, or should I go out and buy a reverse osmosis or softening systems? I just don't know what I need. Is that where you come in, Johnny, with TapScore?
It's super confusing for everyone. You know, there are thousands of water filter companies in America. There are a litany of technologies, and most people haven't spent the time, and nor should they really be required to spend the time to kind of suss out which technology they need for their home. It's really a marketing game. You know, the filter companies all want to sell filters. The consumers don't know which filters they need. They kind of come in general to very simplistic conclusions about what they need. So where we sit is to say we're giving the consumer a very articulate report of what's in their water and what their local risks are. And then we say, based upon this risk exposure, based upon this likelihood of lead and this concentration of arsenic and uranium and gross alpha and microbes, based upon the stuff you're exposed to, here are the top 5 filters that make sense for your home. And what we're giving then is, you know, a decent analogy is you go to the dentist and the dentist tells you you have a cavity, and then the dentist fills it. And if the dentist didn't fill the cavity, it would be an absolutely miserable experience just to be told. And so we spend like a lot of care to make sure that every customer who comes in, and to give you a sense, about 25% of homes have some kind of MCL 1 or 2 violation at their tap water. For those 25% in particular, we recommend filters that they can trust will do the job. And so very often we're having this kind of a conversation. What's notable is I think how difficult it is to get such a clear answer out there right now. That like it's complicated. First of all, it's complicated chemistry, and you need to understand the underlying science just to be able to come to your own conclusions. 2, all the companies say very similar things on the market. It's very difficult to tell the difference between the products that are out there as a consumer. And so we often see people who have bought a new home or have already bought a filter and they've just bought the wrong one. Or they've bought part of what they need, or they've purchased more than they need. So we think that approach, this kind of like general shotgun shell approach to water filtration is an imperfect one. And by doing water tests and providing smart recommendations, we can ensure that people are picking the right filters and having confidence in what they've installed.
And genuinely becoming a smart home's a healthy home. It all begins with testing and figuring out what you have and then getting the right. Jeff, question for you. So, you know, we already have, you use a lot of apps. I have a smart home app. How does the interoperability with Keto work with other smart home systems, or do I have to have my own separate Keto app?
So yeah, it's great question. Right now, at least, so we just came to market earlier this year publicly. So we launched January for selling that device online. And we had our own app, but obviously a lot of folks have been asking, well, you're measuring water level. And of course, I'm a prosumer smart home engineer guy. I want to tie it together with a valve and a little Arduino or something that I bought offline. And so we do have a paid API that people can go into and tie together systems. And I think going into next season, and especially since pools, like I said, went gangbusters this year, we've been having a lot of consumer demand on, you know, can you tie in with Alexa so I can ask Alexa, you know, hey, how's my water quality, or can I go swimming today, and do that. So paid API today, but I think as we grow more consumer base going into next year, we'll tie into probably the Google Home, Smart Things, if this then that, a lot of those pieces.
Cool. And a question on behalf of our audience out there. I see these things floating in pools. How is yours different? Yours isn't a floating. You're in the filter, your skimmer. What's the challenge that those floating sensors have?
Yeah, so I think it's a mixed bag, and so this is my opinion, and why obviously we decided to make something that was static. So our device, for those listening, if you go to our website, you'll see we're what's called a skimmer lid based device. So we're not floating. We literally, you take out an existing lid and we kind of fit right there on the patio. We've seen historically there's two kind of issues with floating devices. One would be you never know like where they are in the pool, or perhaps they're out of the pool. So we've heard and seen stories of dogs jumping in and thinking it's a chew toy and taking it out in the yard. And now you're measuring the air quality instead of the water quality, which is kind of a no-no. You know, we've also seen now, I'm not a PhD chemist. I guess my PhD is in electrical engineering, computer science. So I won't speak too forward, but there are industry reports and other things around as well, the depth of the water you need to be measuring, because UV and sunlight obviously can affect the way that the chemistry works at the surface of a pool versus, let's say, what's submerged, right? Or deeper submerged in a pool. So we think we do a couple things differently by being static and as a plate. One is measuring the skimmer. That's where the water actually flows to the filtration system. And so since we measure over 100 measurements in a given day, you can clearly see a moving average. And we do believe we're testing much more of the water rather than something, let's say, floating at the surface. So that's one. Number two is, you know, you could say it's a challenge on our part. We know that some people, especially homeowners, also are uneducated and don't play by the rules. And so people will throw chemicals in their skimmer basket, or they'll actually put chemicals there, which can throw off our readings. But again, normal pools, they're operating with a pump and other things. And so again, for us, it's been more important to gather more data. And so we've had, I think, an edge over competitors. We're powered by a solar panel and direct to Wi-Fi. And so we've actually been able to increase how much data we send to the cloud because we have a power source. Everything else is battery powered. And so,
and those things are probably Bluetooth or something, or maybe Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess being on the electrical side, you know, we've seen as well, most people have these, you're probably familiar, John, with these pool cleaners. They have like the little spinny kind of pipes on top. Well, as the pool cleaner moves around, you could imagine that those pipes take things under with it. And so if your device is trying to communicate wirelessly to like a base station in your home, if it gets pulled underwater, most people have figured out that Bluetooth doesn't work underwater, at least down to the air. So that's an issue as well.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
On the same, Cameron, on the same topic of knowledge of what's in my water and integration with smart home. So what you're saying is on your app or your offering, I can see what's being left in and what's being taken out. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so to a point, that all depends on sensors available. The key thing is we know from abundance amount of testing what our device removes and what it doesn't remove. So we can get very cost-efficient sensors to tell you that the key things in there, so you have the right amount of, it's called total dissolved solids, are left in your water, and those are the minerals you need to stay healthy. What we can tell is, based on the sort of, to get a little geeky here, how the voltage and current profiles behave tells you when stuff's actually being removed. And we know with our, get a bunch of testing to know what that does. What signals those get to say this is this kind of event versus that kind of event. We're removing these things from the water. Active things are happening. And as we get more sophisticated sensors, we can get, again, more sophisticated data and really tune in on exactly what's going in, what's staying in, what's being removed. The main thing is you don't want those salts to come out, those minerals, the calcium, magnesium, the potassium, all that's the good stuff you want to be able to drink to stay healthy.
Yeah, so it makes water taste like water, and whether you're showering or drinking with it, you want that stuff left in. It sounds like a smart home where you have a dashboard of like, this is what's in our water, and you can show guests and you can show your family that we've got, this is our water profile. It's almost sort of like a cocktail. It's like, this is what's in it, and this is what makes it taste good. And because we only have a few minutes left, Johnny, so if I'm selling my house, Johnny, tap score, let's say I test my score every January, the last 5 years, and I've got my scores. Can your tap score product be folded into the sale of my house? Is that a good thing? Are people thinking that way?
I think they're starting to. You know, we've seen an enormous surge in work with the home inspection community. Ultimately, people are thinking more, I think, than they were 10 years ago about water quality before they move into the home and not taking it for granted. We still see, and probably will continue to see, the majority of people testing outside of compliance purposes. You know, when they don't have to test, they're testing on the buy side. So they're testing before they buy the house. It's pretty rare to see a seller come in and get testing done if the county or the state isn't requiring them to. That's typically for a private well. But if you're just like if you've got a water bill and you're paying the water utility, and you're selling your house, there's virtually there's almost nobody who then tests their water before a sale. Where you see the most testing for home sales is in private wells, and on the buy side.
So if I'm moving into a big house and I've got my contractor and my architect helping me figure out all the appliances I need when it comes to drinking water, before I put in a certain system, I probably want to get my water tested, or ask my contractor, or the architect, or the designer, or project manager to get the water tested. That's sort of the right logic, right? And
yeah, I mean, in our opinion, it's just like duh. Like you want to test the water at least once if you're going to live in this house. Like you should know, because there's crazy stuff. Like we see it every day, and the problem is that you get this impression that it's water quality health. Like one in 500 people is going to get sick because of their water, right? But it's 1 in 500 people because of the water. It's 1 in 500 people because of the air. It's 1 in 500 people because of the lettuce. It's 1 in 500 people because of the steak. All of these environmental exposures in aggregate suddenly become quite real. And so what we're trying to build is a platform for people to kind of manage those risks. And water quality is the perfect one for, I think, the modern times, because it's been neglected for so long.
Well, we're lucky as a society to have entrepreneurs like the three of you, Jeff, Cameron, and Johnny, dedicating your life's work to water quality. And as it relates to smart home, this is a very timely conversation and really good discussion. And for anybody out there in the audience, if you want to connect with Jeff, Cameron, or Johnny, you're welcome to find them on LinkedIn or contact me. But appreciate your time, gentlemen, and we're going to move it over to Q&A. So let's go to Q&A.